Hello there, how are you? Welcome back to How I Did It. I hope y'all had a fantastic Thanksgiving, but it's time to get back to work, right? So we're gonna get rid of the old inverter charger I had for my power station here and put this new Magna Sine in. Now the first thing I had to do, obviously, to keep from getting shocked, was disconnect my battery bank, and then I went through and I started hitting my breakers and my shunts between the solar panels and the wind turbine. That way I wouldn't inadvertently get myself shocked. And then it's just a matter of getting things moved around here on this control board so I can put my Magna Sine up there and get that big old black old inverter charger off. Now my old inverter charger weighs 72 pounds. It is 220 capable, but its abilities are limited. It is loud, it is not energy efficient, and the space that it's in, that portion of that board needs to come off to allow my new battery bank to sit right below this general area. So I went ahead and I got my wind turbine control panel moved. Now my wind turbine is 1700 watts. And the nice thing of it is during afternoon thunderstorms, the wind blows in Florida and it generates power and the sun's not shining, but that wind turbine is charging my batteries. The other thing that is nice about it is during the hurricane season, when we have our hurricanes blow through, typically we have tropical storm force winds, and when the hurricane force winds come, you hit the brake and you turn the system off. But those tropical force winds, you let it run, and again, it keeps your systems running and your batteries charged. So now I have that big old giant inverter out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and hang this new Magna Sine inverter up there. The nice part about this little bugger, it's only 55 pounds. Man, what a weight savings. And this board actually, it's pretty doggone stable, even though it's on piano hinged, so I can access all the wires and things from the back. Once I set the two screws in on the unhinged side here, it's solid. So it's just, for me, it's just a really great setup to be able to keep a little bit of extra wire tucked behind there, kind of like what you do in a breaker box in case you need to modify or change your breakers around. Keep a little bit of extra wire back there just in case. That way you're not having to run a whole new stretch of wire because you can't move something 6 or 8 inches or whatever. Alrighty, anyway, let's just move on. So this thing is so easy to work on. It has regular screws. You can use a regular size screwdriver. On the other inverter, you had to use a teeny tiny screwdriver. Again, it wasn't efficient. It was loud. It was a power eating monster. It was just an absolute beast. This thing is just so quiet and so easy. Green to ground, you have your grounding lug there. You bring your neutral wire in and you bring your black power wire in. It is just absolutely fantastic. Now, those wires are coming from my generator. So say my wind and my solar did not keep my batteries charged, I could start my generator, backfeed, and it would charge them up. Now, going out from here, I want to take 2 hots out because in my 110 breaker box, I want to run both sides of the phase. Even though it's going to be a 110 box, I want all of my breaker spots to actually work. And then this wire here that I'm just showing you, that's the extra hot coming off my generator. I'll probably put maybe a GFCI breaker or plug out there or something independent of this actual breaker box, but I have that whole power strip below it, which is fused as well, or breakered, so I don't know. It's just something extra for me to think about, or something maybe to make a video later on. Anyway, remember the black and the red that I brought over? Putting the black on one side, just like you would do if you were bringing 110 power in. Normally it would be 110 on two different legs to give you 220. I do not have any 220 appliances or tools in the off-grid barn. If at any point that I decide to try welding, and so I would need 220 for welding, right? Because they say 110 welders typically don't burn hot enough. Anyway, so say I wanted to weld something. My generator will generate 220, so I can always pull the generator into the off-grid barn and use that to run a welder. Otherwise, everything is straight up 110. My TV, my refrigerator freezer, my little mini split. Those are my 110 appliances. Everything else in the off-grid barn I have converted to 12 volt. All of my floor lamps are 12 volt. Overhead ceiling lights are 12 volt. Overhead fans are 12 volt. Well, I have a washer too that I run 110. So the nice setup of this, I have one breaker for the east side of the barn, the other breaker for the west side of the barn, and a third breaker for the center of the barn with a few plugs. So say you have a laptop or something like that that you want to plug in. Again, my refrigerator, my television, and oh, I forgot my computer to do my editing. Silly me. Anyway, it's pretty cool. It's a simple setup. You know, if for some reason my Magna Sine went down, I would not be totally left in the dark because so many other things run on just straight up 12 volt power. And I need to see what my puppies are barking at. I'll be right back. Haha, squirrel. It's a day later. My neighbor stopped by with his dog, and Bastion, Grace, and Stella absolutely loved their dog Shadow, so they had to run around the front yard, and then distractions, just total distractions. Anyway, to finish this up, I'm going to go ahead and finish wiring this box. Again, it's a straight up 110 box. I brought the two 110 power sources in to feed both phases on this box. That way I can utilize every single breaker spot just to isolate different areas around the barn that I may want to run a 110 appliance. Say a compressor out here in the electrical panel area. You know, I can just put a breaker in, put in just a specific 110 plug for the compressor, and I'm good to go. As you can see on this breaker box, I have one, it looks like a double pole 30 amp breaker. It's a wider breaker, and it's a 30 amp breaker. Excuse me, but that is specifically to feed the mini split. Now the thing about these new mini splits, when they're coming in, they're actually having them pre-wired to where you just plug them into a regular 20 amp plug, which in the past you had to wire in a quick disconnect and then bring that quick disconnect all the way back to your primary 110 breaker box. So technically I won't really need this 30 amp single pole breaker here. A simple 30 amp or 20 amp single pole small breaker will work to service the mini split. Like I said, they're so energy efficient these days. They're coming in at 16 and 18 SEER. Even the ones that are saying that you need a professional installer, you know, I've watched my AC guy install and charge systems and bleed systems down, that I actually took the time, watched a couple of videos of vacuuming down a 110 mini split, and then I actually installed my own 110 mini split instead of calling my AC guy out. So now everything that I purchased to do that function, I can do over and over and over again instead of paying the fee to my AC guy. Al, if you're watching, sorry, dude. Anyway, it's just all about making yourself self-sufficient. You know, learn a little bit where you can. That way, if somebody's not available to charge your system or vacuum your system, you can actually do it yourself. Or say one of your friends needs help, now you can go ahead and assist them with their system. Because the equipment that I purchased, I had to buy special adapters to vacuum it down, but it came with the original adapters that would be necessary to do a regular home HVAC system. And the function of vacuuming them down are all pretty much the same. The only thing that I didn't really look into very deep was how to evacuate the system and then recharge the system. Alright, so let's get back focused on this Magna Sine. It comes with this remote control panel. Now you can see the roll of wire on top of the Magna Sine there. I'll install that inside the living space of the off-grid barn eventually, but for right now it's serving its purpose right here beside this Magna Sine. You know, I can go ahead, test my systems, charged it up. I actually went out, started up the generator just to make sure that everything was up and working the way that it needed to work. Again, I started purchasing the upgraded elements of my solar wind system back in January. Now they're all starting to come in, and so now I'm actually getting them installed. Now if you look at the right side of the screen there, that silver MPPT inverter charger underneath the fan, that was my original go-to that I used with car breakers or car fuses. All my wiring came off of that, and anything that was 110 came out of the inverter, modified sine wave inverter over there on the left hand side by my head. That was my initial first system that I used when I started my solar setup out here at the off-grid barn. So what I ended up opting to do, because of more solar panels, because of the wind turbine having more power come in, that's when I went to the Outback, and then I set that tracer MPPT inverter up as my straight up, my 12 volt system. So it's kind of a redundant system, but should the Midnight Classic, if something happened to that, then I would still have the other controller, the MPPT controller, to do some of my power with. I can use the big Magna Sine to convert it to 110, and I can also use that modified sine wave from Harbor Freight to convert to 110. So there's redundant multiple systems should anything hiccup or go wrong with it. And then this is just a quick look, you know, at the bottom side of the system. You can see where the remote panel plugs in. You can even hook this thing up to Wi-Fi and actually run it off of your phone. Now I've just opted to put this remote panel right here. Eventually I'll have it wired and ran inside to where I can see what's going on. I won't actually have to physically come out here to check on it. Alrighty, that's it. Now next week I will be putting my wires together for my new batteries, and I will be getting my new batteries installed. Alrighty then, I want to thank you all for stopping by. Have an absolutely wonderful and blessed day.